Also, I'm going to pop one of these bad boys. This is a little perfectly legal gummy bear. Okay? Those are made by Dank Gummies. So if I'm a little bit out of it, a little bit loopy today, just know your boy Dark Horse. We're getting a little bit crazy with it. Okay? And these trying times, I'm not working. The kids are out. So we're hanging, And with the gummies, I just like to do I used to be able to take a heroic dose. But now and I'm sorry if I'm chewing, it's probably the worst thing in the world. Now I take 50 at a time, one little cube at a time, and keep a nice, slow and steady kind of chill throughout the course of the day. Nonetheless, enough about me. We have some boxing news that we've got to get into. So a lot's being made about the Ryan Garcia situation over at the Zone. Boxing media, man, we've got a very and even boxing fans, they're just very fickle. We forget relatively quick about the things that we were just saying. It's all over our social media. We only have to go back a few months and you'll find it on your timeline. October of last year, Patrick Day passes away, and I mean everybody, for the most part, during that tragedy had the same sentiment. Boxers deserve every penny they get when they step into the ring. We're passing the buck onto Ryan right now, right? We're saying, the kid's spoiled. He doesn't deserve it. He should just go in there and take less. If he's the real deal, what does it matter? When in reality, we know what the cost is. And listen, this is not to say that this is not a vastly difficult situation. If we could figure this out as it relates to boxing, we could figure it out as it relates to anything. But nonetheless, to make it seem just because he's Ryan Garcia, just because he is the physical embodiment of everything that we do not like in the next generation coming up. Entitled, brash, so on and so forth. Self-centered. This whole new generation. We don't like it. Let's be honest. Nonetheless, the kid is going out there to fight, get punched in the head for a living. His fights are no less real or fake than anybody else's. And knowing what we just came from in the case of Patrick Day and in the case of Dadashev and all the other guys that have passed away, even over the last year. If you made a comment like that on social media, fighters deserve every penny that they get. Beep, 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 beep. Shut up. Shut up. You can't say nothing about Ryan Garcia. Right? The kid built his brand, got signed, took a contract, just recently was unhappy, renegotiated his contract. Okay, obviously came to something that some sort, because it looked really bad at some point. Came to some kind of agreement, got offered a minimum. The minimum is $200,000. So he had an expected amount of money that he was looking to make. He was expecting a certain type of fight to be coming down the pipeline for him. They're offering him $200,000. And now listen, I understand what the contract says, the black and white, if that is the minimum. But me, personally, I don't want any fighter stepping into the ring disgruntled, feeling like they should be getting more, feeling like they're getting the short end of the stick, feeling like they're being coerced by the media, by the fans, so on and so forth. I don't want to see that sport. Right? Because then we're watching something else. There's something more sinister happening. It's very difficult. I mean, if you're a person that's looking to make the world a utopia, so to speak, right? If you're one of these people that just isn't comfortable with the harsh realities of life, it might be hard to justify your promotion of this sport by way of, working in the sport or watching or supporting or buying it. But at the very least, you can say, you know what? These fighters are doing it of their own volition. They are taking a risk. They are athletically gifted. There's some beauty to it. And with this risk, they run the potential to be handsomely rewarded and to be content. So you allow these people to go out there and fight. If they ain't content, I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't want to watch it. Regardless of what the minimum is. Now, on the other end, these companies are exactly what they sound like. They are companies. One championship in the MMA. We've seen, the news came out today. This can happen to any boxing promotional outfit. It can happen. Regardless of what side you're on, regardless of who you're fanboying for. They can, either, any one of them can go under. Because the problem is so complex. And these people are trying to run a business. And I would bet that the people at ESPN and the people at Fox, the suits that have nothing to do with boxing, are probably telling people right now is not the time to be hemorrhaging money. And boxing without a gate, competitive matches with big name guys, is a losing proposition. It just is. Somebody's going to have to give. So either. And then listen. You got the other side of the coin. You've got the guy looking at it from the perspective that's not Ryan Garcia. The guy right up under Ryan Garcia, maybe the Virgil Ortiz, that's saying, you know what? I'll take the short money. I'll take the short money, and I'll go out there, and I'll put together 3-4 easy wins in this period of time. And by the time we go back to where we need to be, if Ryan sat out, by the time we get back to it, I'll be right where Ryan's at. That's the gamble. But I want Virgil. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. I want Virgil to want to do that. I want Virgil to want to be in the ring that night, to understand that night what it is that he's trying to accomplish over the course of the next few fights. Not disgruntled that night for that fight. And it doesn't stop with Ryan. Bud recently came out. Terrence Crawford, right? We'll move on to the next subject real quick, if it even is. Okay, Bud's comments, right, on fighting for less. This is a guy, arguably, you could say he's the number one fighter in the world, but top 3, top 5 if you don't have some sort of weird agenda, right? This is a quote from Terrence Crawford. "Just don't try and tell me I have to take a pay cut because of a pandemic. I don't feel that's right when I've already went through what I had to go through coming up. Now you're going to tell me to go back to ground one and take a pay cut. I just don't feel like I can do that." So this is a guy, at the absolute top. We're not seeing anything being moved in Canelo's direction either. We don't know anything over there either. Bud is not budging. If Ryan's looking up to Bud and seeing what's going on up there, he sees he ain't budging. If Ryan's seeing Canelo's situation, he ain't budging. I don't think these fighters are looking at it from a philanthropic, some shit like that. Whatever, fuck it. Let's go with that, philanthropic standpoint. But I think these guys are, let's just say as a side effect of Ryan Garcia holding his ground, every fighter under him is offered a little bit of protection because nobody can say, hey, you're being unreasonable. Ryan, who's much bigger than you, just went ahead and did it. Ryan, you're being unreasonable. Bud just went ahead and did it. Bud, you're being unreasonable. You understand what I'm saying? Does Ryan have a moral obligation to do that? If that is the case, I don't know. I don't have the answers to these questions. All I'm saying, this is the only point that I and we went off on a tangent again. The only point that I want to make is that it isn't open and shut for sure. It isn't, oh, this guy's being greedy. It isn't, oh, these promoters, they just need to fucking pay. That's not how it is. That's just not the way it fucking works. And I don't have the answers. I don't know. Maybe you start up maybe you start up a GoFundMe for certain fights, I don't know if you're top ranked. You say, listen, based on public interest, if we could raise up this much money for this fight, we can make it happen. I don't know if you're PBC, whatever. But the point is, which leads me to the second part of the conversation. I think that this is really interesting. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day in boxing media. We're in like a little group text thing. I offered him up this idea, the idea that opponents are of more value today than they are, I don't know, a few months back, pre-COVID. Or at the very least, their value has not moved from where it was, right? I read an article yesterday, and because I'm petty, I will post my conversation. I'll block out the names of the people that don't like to listen to me in boxing media. Stupid people, right? These are my friends, but they're just not very smart people. So they don't listen to me. But I tell him this days before. So, a green one. So, I'm telling him this. He says, no, fuck you, Dark Horse, you're stupid. I say, shut it. Right? But here's what this guy says. Boxing scene, Corey Erdman. He says, the sport will depend on its essential workers. We're not talking about Raheem and Michelle. I vanquished them. They're done. All right? We're talking about the real essential workers. And in this case, he's talking about journeymen. Okay? And now what does he say here? What does he say? Okay. With the circumstance. Oh, no. Okay. But fighting without ideal preparation or advance notice is nothing new. Of a subsect of sports participants, it's journeymen. These fighters are often described as guys who are always ready in the gym waiting for a call. That is sometimes true, but it's more accurate to describe these fighters as folks who are always mentally ready to fight and ones prepared to enter a fight when they're less than 100%. There's plenty of journeymen who enter fights out of shape, but they're still willing to get in there and probably lose. Right? Goes on to say, with circumstances less than satisfactory and purses potentially lower than normal without gate receipts to cash in, fighters like Kevin Johnson and Calvin Metcalf are more valuable and necessary than ever. I agree with this statement. Not only do I agree with it, I'm the one that invented it. I just told you that. I showed you the text messages. I need to get paid on this article. Who's this fucking guy? Corey. I need to get paid on this article. Half. Okay. I agree with this. How can you tell a guy that is showing up to lose, showing up to take a loss? How can you explain that the value of your losses has dropped 50%? The guy's got nothing to gain and showing up to lose other than the money. The potential risk that he runs later in life is not going to be halved. The CTE, the potential to well, first of all, you've only got so many TV dates anyways as a fighter, right? How many losses can you take on TV? What are those losses worth to you? If you wait it out and you go work a normal job, which you might even net you more money than boxing ever was to begin with. If you wait it out, if you come back into the sport, are your services still needed as an opponent? If the answer is yes, then maybe you wait it out. You understand what I'm saying? But if you're going to get these guys to come in and fight in competitive bouts, to take a loss, and some of these showcase fights, or even some of the closer ones to where you're a heavy dog, it's hard to explain to that guy, well, we cut Ryan's purse in half, we cut Bud's purse in half, got to cut your purse in half. That guy might walk. Now you'll say, oh, well, you just pick up another opponent. There is a tipping point financially. There's an amount of money that people are willing to come in to fight and win, and there's an amount of money that people are willing to come in to fight and lose. Period. And in the case of Ryan Garcia, it's more than 200,000. And in the case of some of these opponents, you might run the risk, if you try to mess with their purses, of only being able to put together or pull in fighters of a certain quality. It hurts the viewership. It hurts the ratings, right? We have to make competitive fights that are worth watching, that are going to move the needle. You know, and guys, again, a guy that's offering up one of his TV dates, that's offering up a blemish on his record. These are guys that are not looking to take shorts. Plain and simple, right? And especially, this will bring us, this is how we close it all up. This is how we're going to encapsulate the whole thing. But if you didn't catch that fight yesterday, you got to tune in. Okay, in the first round, this guy, Magic Mike Pliana, came out of nowhere. I don't know this guy. Never heard of him. This is a guy that otherwise might not have been on TV fighting had it not been for this situation, right? So again, we're seeing instances in which you step up, you take the risk, and you reap the rewards. Because the guy went on TV yesterday, and in the first half of a 10-round fight, he was doing things. Listen, I'm not going to bullshit you. He was doing things that I had never seen in boxing before. This is a hot take. This is something I'm going to say that's crazy. That left hand that he throws and that angle that he throws it in, and as quick as he gets it in there, and as hard as he gets it in there, I've never seen a punch like that before. You tell me if I'm wrong. Point me to it. I'm not talking about a check left hook. I'm not talking about like a really flashy quick. I mean, he's throwing an overhand, like an overhand left hook that starts off low, comes up, over, all the way around, and he whips it out there with a speed to where you would think that he can't be landing with anything. And somehow he gets everything on it. It's coming in from such an angle that I bet Josh Greer couldn't even see it. Gets caught with that punch, gets dropped in the first round. Second round, Josh is just trying to keep his things. He's kind of looking like deer in the headlights for a second there. And making some mistakes. He gets backed up against the rope. Pliana's throwing a combination, 2-3 punch combination. Josh Greer backs up in a straight line and takes every single one of them up until his point hits the ropes. You know, there was like a competitive round, I think round 4 or 5. I might have scored round 4 for, no, I'm sorry. I scored round 5 for Greer. And I thought Greer, after getting dropped in the 7th round, got dropped again. Same exact punch, right on the button. Clips him, drops him. And at that point, it just kind of looks like Josh can't win the fight, right? So he's got to really turn it up. In the 8th round, he does exactly that. Attacks his body and really starts to mount a comeback. Round 8, 9, and 10, I gave all those rounds to Greer. I gave him 4 rounds. At the very most that I could possibly see you giving him is 5 rounds. 5 rounds to Josh, 5 rounds to Pliana. But again, I scored at 4, and I couldn't find the 5th round. Okay? And I'll get into the silver linings. Listen, here's one thing I can guarantee, a prediction I can guarantee. The more guys like Magic Mike that come out and take these risks, the more time they're willing to come out and take these risks, the more time they step up to the plate and live up to seize the moment. We're going to see 1 or 2 guys come out of this pandemic from these promotional companies that would not have otherwise blown up under any other circumstance. Right? Pressure makes diamonds. We're going to find some diamonds in this situation. I don't know that Magic Mike is one of them, but and he gassed in the later rounds and he lost some of his power in the later rounds, and he didn't look quite the same in those later rounds. But early on, he looked really good, and I'd be really interested to see what this kid can do in the future. But even if it isn't him, like I said, we're going to get somebody that's going to come out of this that's going to be, that's going to be around for a while. It's going to be exciting. That's going to sell some tickets. This is not the time for that. Listen, I am not going to go on some fucking self-righteous rant about how boxing scoring needs to be changed. It's ruining the sport. We won't have a sport. I've heard it my entire fucking life. Right? I talk to the old timers that I know in my family, some of the old guys and shit like that. They were big boxing fans back in the day. It's how I got put onto boxing, watching it, and I had guys in my family that actually fought, so I did it. These guys aren't interested in boxing anymore. They ask me all the time, who's this guy? What's going on? Or because they don't follow it anymore. And the one answer that they give me every single time, and again, I'll preface this, I got to continue to say this because some people don't really get my line of thinking. right? The devil's advocate, and it's not because I'm so smart. It's probably because I speak like a fucking caveman half the time, or I'm eating dank gummies. But the point is that whether these guys are right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what I'm prefacing it with. I'm not saying I agree with the sentiment, but every single time I ask them why they don't watch anymore, it's the same thing. It's fucking rigged. The sport's rigged. That shit is bullshit. It's rigged. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't think that we're dropping off bags of money and doing all types of crazy shit, and I don't know why these things happen. But you've got to score. I mean, what is it? You got to score 8 rounds to Greer to get a draw? Something crazy? You can't do it. I mean, there's just there's no way. I mean, or is it 7 rounds? I'm not sure how many rounds it is. It's a lot of fucking rounds. A lot more than he actually did win. Right? It's not the time to be doing this. We've lost an entire demographic, right? This sport shouldn't be only for people 20 to 45. The NBA holds on to fans. The NFL held on to fans or holds on to fans. Major League Baseball, forget about it. It's only old people. You know, people just lose interest. And if we're looking at the numbers that are coming out from last week's top rank event, and I can't imagine this week's are much better than that, if at all. You take that into consideration, Dave Moretti, this is not the time to be dicking around. Whatever the fuck the problem is, it's got to get solved. We can get back to pulling the wool over people's eyes when things get better in a better climate. But we cannot. I mean, we've got all eyes on the sport right now, and even then, it ain't a whole fucking lot of eyes. Which is scary when you think about it. I mean, people real quick get into other shit. Forget about you real quick. Netflix, this, that. I mean, we've got all types of things at our fingertips. We can't afford it. You know, and just because the right guy won doesn't mean that you could hand in the wrong fucking decision and nobody's going to say anything about it. I mean, we've got to get to the point to where, you know, put these guys on the fucking bench. Put them on the bench. I don't want to see them. Guys, we got some more fights coming up this weekend, and we are going to watch the shit out of them shits. And we're going to comment on them. We're going to talk about them. I don't know, man. I don't know if you guys are still hanging in with me. If you are, cool, man. If you're not, I don't fucking want you here. Scram. Get out of here. I'll see you guys later, though. Thanks for checking in.